One of football's greatest legends, Diego Maradona, has passed away at the age of 60. He is considered to be one of the greatest players of all time. He is a former midfielder and manager of Argentina and recently suffered a major heart attack at his Buenos Aires home. He had successful surgery on his brain because he had a clot earlier in November and was to be treated for his alcohol dependency. Maradona was captain when Argentina won the 1986 World Cup. He scored the famous Hand of God goal against England in the quarterfinals. In a statement that was recently issued by the Argentine Football Association, they have expressed their deepest sorrow for the passing of their legend. They further added that he will always be in their hearts. Declaring 3 days of national mourning, the president of Argentina has said, "You took us to the top of the world. You made us immensely happy, and you were the greatest of them all. Thank you for having existed, Diego. We're going to miss you all our lives." Maradona played for Barcelona and Napoli during his club career, winning 2 Serie A titles with the Italian side. Maradona also scored 34 goals in 91 appearances for Argentina, and he represented them in 4 World Cups. Maradona led his country to the 1990 final in Italy, where they were beaten by West Germany, before captaining them again in the United States in 1994. But he was sent home after failing a test for epinephrine. During the second half of his career, Maradona struggled with serious addictions and was later banned for 15 months after testing positive for a serious substance in 1991. Later, Maradona retired from professional football in 1997 on his 37th birthday during his second stint at Argentine giants Boca Juniors. He was briefly the manager for 2 sides in Argentina during his playing career. Maradona was appointed head coach of the national team in 2008 and left after the 2010 World Cup, where his side was badly beaten by Germany in the quarterfinals. Oh, what a coincidence. He subsequently managed teams in the United Arab Emirates and in Mexico, and was in charge of Gimnasia e Esgrima in Argentina's top flight at the time of his passing. Another legend from Brazil, Pele, has led tributes for Maradona. This is what he wrote: "What sad news! I lost a great friend, and the world has lost a legend. There is still much to be said, but for now, may God give strength to your family members. One day I hope we can play together in the skies." That's a beautiful tribute from Pele. Former England striker and Match of the Day host said that Maradona was by Holmes' standard and by some distance the best player of his generation, and arguably the greatest of all times. Another Argentinian midfielder, Ardil, said, "Thank you, Dieguito, for your friendship, for your football, sublime without comparison. Simply the best football player in the history of football. So many enjoyable moments together, impossible to say which one was the best. Rest in peace, my dear friend." Maradona has been described as dazzling, infamous, extraordinary, quite a genius, outrageous. That is Diego Maradona, a flawed football icon. He's one of the game's most gifted players, and the Argentine boasted a rare combination of flair, extreme flamboyance, vision, and speed, which has served to mesmerize fans across the globe. He also outraged supporters with his controversial Hand of God goal and plunged into a mire of serious substance abuse and personal crises off the pitch. Born 60 years ago in Argentina, Diego Armando Maradona escaped the poverty of his youth to become a football superstar, considered by some to be even better than Brazilian Pele. The Argentine, who scored 259 goals in 491 matches, came to prominence in South America and was determined to be the greatest player of the 20th century before FIFA changed the voting rules, so both players were honored. Maradona showed prodigious ability from a young age, leading Los Cebolitas youth team to a 136-game unbeaten streak and going on to make his international debut aged 16 in just 120. Maradona was always the shortest and the stockiest guy on the football pitch. He was all of 5 feet and 5 inches tall. He was not your typical athlete because of his height, but he was superb in his football. He had silky skills, agility, vision, ball control, and he could dribble the ball across the field. He would pass it more than any other player would, and this compensated for his lack of pace and occasional weight problems. He may have been a whiz at running rings around hostile defenders, but he found it harder to dodge trouble. And of course, let us talk about the famous Hand of God goal, which is still considered to be the goal of the century. Maradona's 34 goals in 91 appearances for Argentina tell only part of the story of his roller coaster international career. He led his country to victory at the 1986 World Cup in Mexico and a place in the final 4 years later. In the quarterfinals of the earlier tournament, there was a foretaste of the controversy that would later engulf Maradona's life. The match against England already had an extra friction, with the Falklands issue between the two countries having taken place only 4 years before that. Therefore, on field, there was a lot of edge. And of course, it became even more intense within 51 minutes, and the game was goalless. Maradona jumped with opposing goalkeeper Peter Shilton and scored by punching the ball into the net. He later said that the goal came thanks to a little with the head of Maradona and a little with the hand of God. 4 minutes later, he scored what has been described as the goal of the century, collecting the ball in his own half before embarking on a bewitching, mazy running and left several players trailing before he rounded Shilton to score. You may have to say that he was magnificent, and that goal was spectacular, and therefore it was named the goal of the century. There's no doubt about that goal. That was just pure football genius. England pulled one back, but Argentina went through. And Maradona saying it was much more than winning a match. It was about knocking out the English. He broke the world transfer record twice, leaving Boca Juniors in his home country for Spanish side Barcelona for £3 million in 1982 and joined Italian club Napoli 2 years later for £5 million.